Been asked a few times to do like a shop walk around type video. I don't really make videos, but yeah, a bit bored, might give it a go. So what we got, so this box on the top has got assorted parts for various other bits and bobs projects, nothing to do with radio. So we move down, we got the storage boxes. Top one's got some tools in it, parts and tools in the middle one. The bottom middle one, cables, useful for plugs and wire and bits and pieces. There's some power plugs, whatever in there. Bottom drawer, it's all circuit boards, mainly old Xboxes and routers and stuff, but some useful parts, connectors and bits and pieces. We really need to go through that and just chuck away all the crap. Nothing really overly exciting in there. As we come up onto the bench, we've got the toolbox, little hands-free third hands jobby thing, toolbox, green mat to just protect the top. Toolbox is well, it was my air rifle toolbox, but it's got pliers, side cutters, screwdrivers, multimeters in the top, some flux, solder, a few other bits and pieces, nothing overly out of the ordinary, nothing special. Tools are tools really. And this job, we've got the cheapo Chinesium desk lamp, magnifier thing, articulated arm thing. It's not bad. It claims to be 5 times magnification, but personally probably only 3. And push, it's glued to the side, little controller, you can change the light colour. Yeah, no real value to that. You see we come in on him and you can brighten, lower the intensity, whatever you want to do there. It works quite well. Cheap as chips, does the job really, can't really complain. Soldering station, 2-in-1 soldering station. Yeah. It's a Katsu one. Yeah. Basically they're all Heiko copies, whatever you buy. Chinesium. Quite like the Katsu ones. I've never had any issue with them. The cables are reasonably nice. They're not the standard like PVC shit that folds up and stays folded up. Just a little bit better. I wouldn't say they're full silicon. The torch itself is adequate, does the job. Tips are cheap. The little stand's actually quite good for the money. It's got some other sponge jobby in it and some bits that I've probably forgotten that were in there. But it's all metal. It's not one of these plastic efforts. So it's I quite like that. The blowgun is a fairly standard affair. Whichever Heiko type clone you buy, it's fairly similar. The unit itself is quite nicely made, quite good plastic. Bought this one because some of the other one hung low type variants that I've seen that are identical, but they're maybe black or blue or grey or some other hokey colour. On various videos I've seen of these, when you open them up, because it's supposed to be an ESD safe tip, earth to the tip, that old tip there should be earthed. When you take some of these other Chinesium one hung low varieties apart, the earth lead is either just tucked under the main cable, attached to nothing. I've seen them screwed to the plastic, helpful, and other bits and pieces are just kind of shoddy. I've got another couple of bits of equipment that I made with this Katsu brand on, and they've always been good, so I got this one. With all these hokey copies, you turn the power onto the soldering iron, you turn the power onto the blower. As you notice with mine, it doesn't do anything. As standard, this particular style of station, when you get it out of the box and plug the thing in, which with mine, first thing I always do with any of these Chinesium affairs is take them apart and just give them a good check over, make sure the terminals, because quite often the earth lead, if it is screwed to a transformer or something of that nature, generally they're not tight, they're loose, they're flopping about like a cock in a sock. You want to just go through it and make sure it's as safe as it can be before you plug the damn thing in. And these I've found to be fairly well made. And with these, as I say, when you pull it out the box and you plug the thing in for the first time, what normally happens is the 3 digits across here, the centre bars, flash to say that it's on but it's turned off. But what I've done with mine, I don't know if you can see this, is on the back here I've fitted an inline power switch. Turn that little baby on. This is what you normally get straight out of the box. That flashing affair, which means it's powered up constantly, which I wasn't really keen on, and everything's switched off at the moment. However, when you switch the things on, like the blower, let's do the blower, temperature comes up and it does a constant set of blue lines. I don't know if that's showing up as blue or just sort of bright, which means it's on, it's active, it's not doing anything. When you lift the old handset up, there's a magnetic switch in the base and away she goes. Temperature comes in, pop it back, and the temperature fades away. If you forget to turn it off, and for whatever reason the handset gets knocked out, it's just going to start going. I didn't really like that. That's when you turn it off, you've got these annoying blue lights flashing at you all the time. Now my little setup here is in a bedroom, because it's the only space I've got available at this point in time. So let's play along. That's fucking annoying in the night. So we put this power switch on the back, turn her off, that thing is safe, and I'm much happier with that. So that's the little 2-in-1 soldering station. It works really well, to be honest. The soldering iron side on this one, a little bit on the slow side. It takes its time to warm up, but you know, yeah, whatever. The little blower's quite handy. I've done a bit of SMD stuff. Really good for heat shrink, but you know, bit much just for blowing some heat shrink when you can just whack a lighter over it like most people do. My little solder wiper, whatever you call it, originally came with that gold coloured doings in it. I've since put a pan scrubber of the silver variety wedged in the bottom there just to pack it out, makes it kept disappearing inside and getting crushed. But yeah, it's alright, works, it's quite useful. Both my benches have got mats on. This is an original proper mat. It was a bit beat up and burnt, so I stuck it under the toolbox. The only reason for that is because the soldering station was hanging off the side and it was wobbling around and it was doing my head in. So we put 2 on here. Unfortunately, the cheap ass version from the works is just kind of drawn on, and a little bit of alcohol, and oh dear, it's wiped off. Oh well, never mind. It is what it is. Well, it's a bit awkward to do this in some sort of an order, so we'll go here next. It's the newest addition to the bench, the Siglent oscilloscope, the SDS-1202X-E. Not done a lot with it yet. It's a very nice little scope, very compact, very light. Seems a nice bright screen. It's got the maths program already built into it, so you've got your FFT and bits and pieces on there. Not really played with it massively. Give it a little power on, shall we? It sits here flashing this little annoying light all the time, but yeah, never mind. Give it a power up. It's bright. Screen, you know, little wire dangling in the middle of the screen. Numpty. Takes its little time to come on. It's quicker than the old soldering iron. Yeah, so there we go. What we got? That's quite nice. The half giga sample if you're using the 2 channels at once, which yeah, I don't really do that too often, I suppose. Got 3 channels, not sure what I can do with the external one. Software's updatable. Oops, shit, what was I doing? Videoing the bench because I'm a real good cameraman. Probes are a bit, yeah, bit on the cheap side, I would say, but they work. They're adequate for what you're going to need. It's a nice little scope, I like it. It's got touch buttons along the bottom, roundy knobs over here. Let's have a look what we got. Get your divisions coming up. There we go. Yeah, and I can control it off the PC, which is quite handy sometimes. Hold the old button in and it sums up, it's shutting down. Lovely biscuits. There it goes, it's off. So that's the little oscilloscope along the bench. Now this is the Katsu soldering iron that I bought in the first place. This one's about, I don't know, 18 months old maybe. Awesome, love this thing. Same little stand that's on the other one. The dopey little sponge that comes with it is about the size of a crouton. Again, the same sort of hokey coloured plastic, which why I got the other one really, so they match, apart from this bright yellow front. It's basically a Heiko copy. I found it to be really good. It heats up a hell of a lot quicker than the other Katsu model that I've got, the 2-in-1. Might have to do a race with them at some point. The wand is basically the same Heiko style one. Takes the Heiko style, the older Heiko style tips. You can get some cheapy ones off of eBay or Amazon for about a tenner. Yeah, they're not great. They're a bit. I've put 2 in these, and this one's starting to erode already. It's fairly poo. Some plugs in the background there. Look. Little roll of solder, flux paste. There we go. This is fairly interesting. This is some flux that I made. Make my own flux now. This is more of a paste. It's not quite as solid as the Katsu one. Came with a solid lump of paste in a little tub that you can dip your tip in, which I use that one for tinning the tips and stuff like that. This is a bit thicker. You can kind of use it for get a good stir around because it does separate slightly. Use it for sort of putting SMD components down. It's just about good enough for that. And this is my liquid one. Little bottle of liquid flux. This is one of my later attempts, I suppose. The first one I just kept shoving rosin core in and to the alcohol and filling it up until it degraded, before realising they're better off making a mix of like 60-40 mix, and okay, we've ended up with something a bit more liquidy that actually comes out of the spout rather than the thick stuff that didn't. So there's a torch there. It's always handy to have a little torch. bright white LED, very good when you're in a inside a circuit board. You don't get that kind of shadowing and crap going on. USB lead there in the way. So we move around, so where should we go now? Let's go here to Gary. We'll have a look at Gary. My old mate Mark used to say, here's Gary. Gary's a Racal-Dana frequency counter, model 1998. And the reason it's called Gary is because I bought it off of a friend, Gary Sanderson. Thanks Gary, lovely meter. Very accurate. Much more resolution than the old thing I was using. It's got the handle, it's a military spec one, so I think it's got slightly better components in it and a few other bits and pieces. This guy has the handles which were doing my head in, so I've took them off and turned them round so that they're just out of the way, because I'm kind of restricted for space and they were just a little bit annoying. But yeah, this works beautifully. Let's have a little go. Shall we turn him on? Tells you what he is. Gives you the bump, and there it is. It shows up as having a dodgy segment there, but it's actually full. It does read. Got a 10 meg oscillator in it. Works very nicely. I've used this to check my other stuff, which turned out that I thought was quite accurate and is fairly close. It's not perfect. What we got up here? We've got my dummy load up here. I mean, going on, if we're using the old convention that Mark came up with of naming everything after the people who bought it or donated it or whatever, then this one's called Haley, because my daughter bought me this. It's 150 watt. It's just one of those little resistors that I think it's a 250 watt resistor, but it's designated as being a 150 watt dummy load. 50 ohm resistor. It terminates to the case. Got chuffing great heat sink on the top of it, and a minus 40 dB tap on the side. I've done a little bit to this. It's got another tap here, which I'm going to rig up for a minus 20. Give us a little bit, because sometimes when you're working with it on the radios, you have to wind the power up a little bit to get more accurate readings on some of the instruments. They underread because I don't think the signal's strong enough, so we just put minus 21 in there. That should be fine. On the end I've put a couple of connectors for banana plugs. I found a board in the garage which had about 6 of these little fat banana plug sockets on, which maybe they're a little bit overkill for this, but no, I like them, so I put them on, and I've got 2 more on another project somewhere, wherever the hell that went. Oh, it's knocking about. It's a power supply anyway. So yeah, so we've got positive and negative voltage attached to there. There's a peak voltage detector circuit inside. Some the old germaniums are supposedly AN34s, but whether they really are is another question. It seems to work. So what you get out of that is a voltage from an RF source, which can give you I've been using it to kind of estimate power output, because I've got meters, but are they accurate? I don't know. That's what we're using. It's working quite well so far. What I've put in and put out, the results I've got from my testing seems to work. Again, I won't know entirely unless I get a really accurate power meter, but it's given me a guideline. I'm not hunting every watt. As long as I can say, okay, well, if you know it's putting out a watt when it should be, when it says it's putting out 5 or something, it's, yeah, I need to know. As long as it's putting out a decent amount of power that it's usable, that's all it's really for. So as we move around, let's get a bit cramped here, so I'm crap in the way. We've got here, it's the Thurlby Thandar SM620 Scopemeter. It's a benchtop multimeter with a built-in oscilloscope. It's only like 20 meg. I really like this. It's great. I've never seen one before. Then I found a couple on eBay, so I bought one. It's been working flawlessly for probably 2 years now, until recently when it started to go a little doolally. And yeah, it doesn't zero out on ohms, and voltage readings are a bit sketchy now. I suspect there's something going a bit sideways inside, but service information is extremely vague. I've emailed Thurlby. They don't keep the manuals anymore. They were kind enough to email me a really dodgy circuit diagram, which I've got to try and sit down and get my head around. It's kind of a bit odd. Basically it's not what I'm used to, so it seems odd to me. I'll have a go at it. It's probably got some caps going tits up, but it's quite a... oh, it's on the back, the power switch for this bugger, isn't it? Let's move them out of the way. Yeah, so you earthed it out and you've got your connections over here for your normal probes, which are mainly... it does do voltage from there, but it's been a bit sketchy lately and not actually registering anything, so it's probably gone a bit sideways. But you do voltage readings off of these probes down here using just a normal oscilloscope probe, which is quite cool. Shall we turn it on? Let's try and turn it on. It's a bit awkward because a lot of this equipment, for some reason, the in power switches are always on the back, so I have to fiddle about. There it is, little bugger. One thing I'll say with this is the display is a bit crappy. So we've got counter timer, to serial analysis, setup, oscilloscope, whatever. So you confirm with this little button over here. It zeroes the ranges. I haven't got any probes handy, so I won't be plugging anything in. It says it's that, and if you shorted those out on, let's go down to ohms, you've got continuous 200, 2k, 20k. It usually reads some sort of spurious reading unless you go into menu and you go down to setup, and you can do an auto reset, and then it will read a bit more accurately for a day or two, and then it starts to go sideways again. So that's that bad boy. I really like this, so I'm hoping I can get it fixed. Hopefully we can get some more use out of it. It's amazing, isn't it? This video was supposed to be a 10-minute walk around, and we're already 25 minutes in, and it's like, oh, shit, I might have to make 3 videos out of this at this rate. So anyway, let's move along. Let's get going. What else we got? So over here, power meter. It's an old Rama 250FC. I've only put it on here because it's sort of square, is the main reason. It sort of stands up quite well. I've got several other old style CB power meters. Accuracy, yeah, not overly convinced. I've been messing about with this using the Superstar 6900N variable power. It claims to put out between a couple of watts and 35-40 watts. It's kind of a bit vague on FM. Measured on here, it does put out 45, I think it said originally, and when I've switched it down, but obviously 69 hasn't got a power output reading anywhere. It's just a variable control, so you can be set anywhere and really not know what the hell you're putting out. So how can you adjust the meter? So what we've been doing Here's our little voltage takeoff there, dialing the radio into a known voltage for a specific amount of watts, say 10 watts, 8 watts in some cases, setting this to the 10 watt position and checking it, and setting it to the 100 watt position and checking it, and it's not too bad on the 100 watt scale. The 10 watt scale is kind of shady, but it was massively out. Probably what, I don't know, maybe more than 10% out. In fact, no, it was actually more than that, wasn't it? It was about, at 10 watts it was probably putting 13 or 14 watts on the screen. This has now been adjusted, so for a known voltage of whatever it is, I forget off the top of my head, RF voltage at peak, this now reads the wattage, and it kind of corresponds with the 6900N as being 35 watts max power output, which if you've used it for a short period of time seems to fade off on this 6900N. I don't think it's overly stable, but I'm quite happy that the ballpark figure on this is reasonably good. It's, as I was saying, AVO, there we go, AVO Meter 8 Mark 5s. I love these things, they're great. These are probably one of my favourite old school type tools, and they both work. This one here, lefty, old lefty over here, is my original, turned up. Not been overly successful in buying these. They either go for really stupid money, which I won't pay because I'm not an idiot. Got these, I think this one was a 15 quid or something like that, this lefty, turned up. Yeah, they have battery leakage. They've got oddball batteries in them. They use an old D4 cell, the big chunky mother, and yeah, this had batteries in it that had leaked, and then they use one for the higher ohms range, which is a really oddball 15 volt battery that's like stupidly expensive to buy, so you have to make your own. Well, they'd all leaked, so the terminals were fairly crappy, eroded, weak, broken. It's got board damage. It does work on, I think it works on most of the settings. It's obviously not going to work on ohms because the batteries are not in there. Voltage is fairly useful. It can be a little flaky, otherwise it does work. I mainly only use it for indication. They're really great for peaking circuits. Wind it up, you can see the needle move where you can't get that with the digital meter. So I like the look of them, they're great. This one here, this bad boy righty was sold as being in excellent condition, or perfect condition, and perfect working order. Wrong. When he arrived, righty up the top here, righty up the top here, had a great bulge in the plastic, and then you could practically see inside. And let's do this again with the torch. You can look to the just below the red terminal, that mark is actually a crack and a chunk missing out of the plastic. It's broken right through, far from perfect condition. However, this one compared to lefty, this is getting awkward. A torch in one end, and yeah, see, lefty's buttons are not as good as righty's. Still got all the little covers there, where lefties have gone. We can see lefties have started to poke out over the top. Lefties have all gone a bit manky and shriveled. The condition of lefty is far better than righty. And I was going to gut one and put it into the other, but no, I thought, well, do you know what, bugger it, I'll just leave it as it is. Originally, these are, I can't remember what year these are now, 70 something. I love this one's got its original leather look plastic handle, complete with stitching. Awesome. Let's turn it round and put it up here. We'll put Lefty back to front. There's Lefty. Lefty is made in Dover, England. Instructions: battery compartment. Takes a 15-volt battery, little square 15-volt battery to do your higher ohms ranges, and then there's a D cell, I think it is, in there. It's like a couple of volts at most, does the lower ranges. Righty there turned up with an original Ever Ready battery that looked like it had come from the 70s. That's how I remember them when I was a kid. Yeah, that's lovely, brilliant. Now I did look on here somewhere, can't remember where it was. No, it's not jumping out at me. Somewhere on here. These are both, I think, from around 1977, 78. One's a year old. This one, Righty here, the old mate, is I think a year older than Lefty, or the other way around, whichever it is. This one's got, again, the traditional, very nice, but much more worn, imitation leather plastic handle. Lovely, lovely old touch. There's Chinesium, made in Hong Kong, one hung low plastic shit. This is proper English plastic, this stuff. Lovely. So that concludes, really, the top layer of the bench. So there it is, and we've got the keyboard. Needs a bit of a clean, probably shouldn't put that in the video. Screen for whatever. Oh, and we'll do this bit while we're here. Put my hand over that. So around here on the side we've got parts cabinets. So we've got resistors, transistors, diodes, and the capacitors are up there. And they're all I've done is gone by the value 22, and anything with 22 in it, whether it's 22, 22k, whatever, is in a drawer where possible. And when we come down here, where are we? Down here we've got, is that focus, hocus pocus. We've got diodes, diodes, VCOs, PLLs, various transistors, la-di-da-di-da. Lovely, that's all great. Okay, just as a little side note here, this is one of the first bits of equipment I ever bought. It's a Sphere Instruments made in West Bromwich, England. I dated this to around about 1960. It's a type 75 Model 1 HF signal generator. It's got the old Midland television, London television settings on it. It's kind of a nice ornament, really. You adjust it with this plastic swinging needle thing, variable capacitor or whatever in there. It's got attenuators there for microvolts times 1, 10, 100,000 force and audio. And then you've got a range that you can then, within the 1 times, you can then dial it in from 1 to 10. So I guess 0.1 to a volt or whatever it is. A nice old fashioned switch for the on, a nice old fashioned switch for the carrier wave or modulation. Band selectors are the old chicken head knobs. And then it does audio frequency or RF frequency. It's an old valve machine, this thing. So I have had it plugged in. It does work up to a point. It's kind of sketchy and I really don't know much about it, so it's more of an ornament and I just like it. So it sits up there and it's in really good condition, really, and I've never seen much about this. I've never seen another one. I've got no idea on circuit diagrams or any kind of instruction manuals. No, never seen anything. I've asked people, nobody seems to know. It's fairly similar to some of the other stuff that's about from this sort of time period, mid to the early to mid to late 60s. It's a lovely old thing just to have sitting about. So that's a little side note. The stockpile. This is my stockpile. Yeah, I'm one of those sad people that buys, look under here, buys old radios for parts, and then can't bring myself to actually tear them apart because they work, or they mostly work, or they're not far from being fully working, and I kind of can't do it to myself. So what we've got under here, we've got the Concorde. So a version, let's move this bloody cable out of the way. Numpty. Let's move this thing out of the way, because yep, you can tell I'm a proper expert at this stuff. Okay, so we've got the Concorde at the top there. The next one down is a Multimode 2 with its front off, because the front's in really good nick, but it was all detached. And until I'm ready to put it back on, I'll leave it off because they'd scratch easy as anything. They're probably one of the worst front panels going. Below that, oddly, another Hameg International Multimode 2. Again, what I've got is in another area, is a Multimode 2 that my dad bought in, right, what would that have been, 1980? 81? Yeah, it was 80, I think. And it developed some faults while it was sat around in cupboards from years to years. He gave it to me. I found it was a bit faulty. One of the problems is the volume control switch, which I couldn't get for love or money. So the idea was buy another one, a junker, pull it apart for parts. And it turned up, and I forget which one it was, but it worked. And it was one of those things where I was like, I can't really pull it apart just for a volume switch. I've basically got two that work, so I ended up with another one. And another one. And oh shit, there's another one there, look. And two TriStar 747s, come back to them. And another one, and bugger me, there's another one. So, and there's another one, don't worry, there's another one. Let's have a quick glimpse. There he is, look, down there, there's another one. How many of these have I got? 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I've got 8 of these now that I've been bought for parts that are like either too good or for some other reason they just don't, I can't pull them apart. The two TriStars, one of those TriStars used to belong to my friend Mark, the Cobraman, Vanny. It was part of his estate when it was sold by his sister after his death 4 years ago now. Sadly missed. Great guy, brilliant YouTube videos, absolutely mental sense of humour. So some of these, there's I think 2 or 3 multi-modes that were Vannies, a TriStar that was Vannies. I think there was 4, maybe 5 radios that came from the estate. One old boy, where is he? Is he? There he is, he's up there, look, old Red. There he is. If you have a look through Vanny's videos, you see old Red at some point. Scruffy as a scruffy thing. I don't really know, in Mark's video he was going to take the guts out of old Red and put them into one of these other ones because it had a nice case and Red worked really well. I didn't know whether he ever did it, but old Red's there, and Scruffy is a scruffy thing, or what Mark used to call it, it's a proper pile, that one. This one's a bit of a pile. This has got a nice front, and I'm using the front to maybe design a graphic to go over this so that we can tidy up some of these. I think, I think it's the one that we've got on the floor that's one of Vanny's ones that I guess he got it like that, but it was awful thing. So that's definitely in need of a makeover. What we've got here, if you can see that, chaser. Now this is a Chaser MC5000. Yeah, believe it or not, this was in perfect working order when I got it. Really good condition, nice cases, nice front, all the knobs were present. That's it now. I was using it as a mess about radio. So what we've got some extras in here. There's the old microphone, this is original. We put that there for a minute. And we've got an echo kit. We've got an FM receiver kit going in, and we've got the UK40 EPROM conversion going in there. So this is basically a straight AM radio out the box, 120 channels, so it does the low, mid and high on AM only. With the FM board we can then get high, low, mid and high on the FM band, so the sept band, AM, sept band, FM, later introductions. With the EPROM conversion we'll get the UK 2781 40 channel order. The echo was, I don't even know why I put that in there. That might come out and just go into a box so it can be used with multiple radios, but it was available, so I just started messing about with it. And the FM board, so that we've got the FM. So this radio is basically a President JFK, only the Chaser doesn't have the FM board like the JFK does, but other than that, for all intents and purposes, it is exactly the same. Yeah, so that's a good little thing. What we got tucked away, hiding under the back there, is a Stalker 9. It's an FDX, I think. Oh shit! The old Stalker 9. Stalker 9. Old stonker. It's a bit battered and beaten up. I've had this now. Didn't realise this. I've had this for some years, 15, 20 years maybe. I bought this from a car boot sale for £15, and it actually worked. It's given up a bit lately. It's got a bit squiffy, needs a bit of a service. It had a repaint because it was as a rusty thing. It needs a new repaint because it's now scuffed and battered. Tucked away behind here, you just see a row of knobs. There's a Stalker 6, which I bought originally for the cases. And some other bits and pieces to do the Stalker up. Unfortunately, it's not the same size, so I've ended up with a Stalker 6, which is basically an AM radio on its own. It does nothing much out. I think that's actually got FM on it. I can't remember. Pull it out on the knob. I'll have to get it out and have a look. But that's about it for under there, really. So that's the stock pile, as it were. There's a Superstar 6900N knocking around here somewhere as well that we'll come back to. Moving along, there's a thing there that somebody's probably wondering why there's a roll of baking paper under there, and the laser printer. The laser printer was a cheap acquisition from a local company that was flogging it. This is for circuit boards. I print the toner transfer method. Yeah, not as successful as I'd hoped. Magazine paper really doesn't work on this particular printer. Photo paper is extremely sketchy and ridiculously long-winded. Tracing paper, wah wah wah. Tracing paper, when you heat it up, it seems to stick even better to the tracing paper than it was originally, so that was a failure. Baking paper. Baking paper. Non-stick. This is the clear white stuff. This was a whole pound from QD or somewhere. Cheap ass pound shop. works really well, bloody delicate. You print, so what I do is I cut a square out for the circuit board that I want. I tape it to a piece of paper. Bad move. The tape ended up around the roller. Printer now makes a funny noise. Still working, but yeah, whatever. So what I've now done is I've created a pocket on a piece of paper that keeps it in the same place. So I've printed what I wanted to print onto a normal piece of paper. Worked out where that was. Made an envelope around it with a hole in the window in the front. Put the bit of baking paper inside. That stops it from rolling up and getting all mangled. The only sketchy bit is it really, the ink, the toner, really doesn't stick that well to the baking paper, which is great, but if you knock it, oh dear, messed it up already. So we'll have a look at that one day maybe when I'm doing it. I've had a couple of goes. It transfers really well, literally. You have to put it on. You have to try not to jiggle it about too much while you're taping it down. Whack it through the iron. You can even iron it. I use a laminator that's really crappy. It's one of those Racal ones. I thought it'd be quite good, but yeah, cheap as arseholes. Probably Chinesium in a Racal box. The gears rattle and clank when it's trying to drag it through. It's fairly poo, but with the baking paper, 2 to 4 passes is more than enough to transfer every last drop of toner to the board. Literally nothing left on the paper. Found it to be, though, a little bit almost, how can I put it? It's grainy, so you tend to get not brilliant coverage. I had decent results using a marker pen to go over the lines, and some of that worked really, really well, even better than the tone itself. The bits where I'd gone over it were far better quality. I did have a go at doing the baking paper twice over the top of itself, which, as you can imagine, is a little bit sketchy because the rollers in the printer just moved it and it gave it that kind of blurry 3D effect. So that wasn't overly successful. We'll have another go. We'll perfect the technique. It's only little boards that I'm making, nothing overly spectacular. It'll work. Let's move around here. So what we got under here is a desoldering station. The blue jobby on the top there. There we go. Let's get them wires out of the way. Now this is a Katsu. Again, as I said before, I like the brand. I've had good results, so I've stuck to it. It's a great little thing. It's again a Heiko copy. The thing to watch with these little units when you buy them is, I mean, these are all copies. They're all, if you can line 10 up together, and they'll all look exactly the same with different names on. Some would be one hung low, no name, and you get this ones with a brand name on that are exactly the bloody same, really. Again, it's got the nice, really nice silicon wire on this one. It's much better than the other two, in fact. Hang on, is it this one? Yeah, I mean, it's quite good. It's not brilliant. And then you've got your air pipe, which goes to your handset. Now this has got a really hefty base on it. It weighs a ton. So the gun sits in it really nicely. The thing with some of these is the gun is the really weak point. Look how that fits in. It sits and it hangs nicely. Some of them, they hang all wonky and fairly crap. The gun itself, it's got a nice sturdy feel to it. You can change the tips for different sized holes. You've got like 1mm, 1.2, 0.8, whatever come with it. You've got this little glass, well, it's not glass, it's like plastic, perspexy type material. So when it sucks it, it fires the solder into there, which hits the spring, and then there's a gauze at the back that stops it going anywhere. Catches all the bits of old junk that come off. It's quite a nice gun. This is actually feels quite good in your hand. Some of them I've seen are a bit Toy Town. They're a bit, you know, Fisher Price. This is actually not bad for what it is, and they're advertised as being, I can't remember, 100 and something watts, and it clearly says 90 on there. It does work right well. Usually the end is usually quite blocked up when you get it, and it did take a little while to unblock it, but it does it. It's got this release catch here that fires that off. You can take this out to empty it, clean it, put new bits in it. And I've seen some of them where when you close that, it's a bit shady, doesn't really shut. Well, this is quite nice. It's actually quite good. Used it on, quite successfully on a couple of little things. Really used it a lot. Probably part of a learning curve to get the best out of it. And once you figured it out, it's really good. You just change your tip, it just unscrews from here. Just take the slide the end off, and then you get a little tip that fits over the heater element. Quite good. I like that. Very useful. One of the more expensive bits, I think they're about 80 quid. But you know, I'm not using it every day, so I don't need to go out and spend £300, £400, £500, dollars, whatever on a Heiko one that maybe no better quality. Really, you don't know, do you? You never know these things. So that's that. What we got under here, this is another part that should be called Haley. This is my power supply. It's got, of course, some fine tune on the amps and the voltage. This is a 10 amp up to 30 volts. Just power it on. It comes on, and then you can adjust your voltage there at the minute, because there's no current on it. It will show voltage, but it won't really show current. When you're on the current, you can then wind more or less current on, and once you get below the threshold, it's now more into the current than it is into the voltage, so it can't support, so the voltage starts to drop off. Then you come back in, and there you go. That's quite useful. You can plug that into stuff, power it up, and just wind the voltage up very, very slowly to see if the circuit is safe before you give it the full 12 volts, 13 volts, and fry the damn thing. So that's that part. So under this part of the bench, what have we got here? Start down here. We've got two Maplin Gold Series Precision Gold. Look at that, doesn't that sound nice? M204 audio oscillators. Now these are too powerful for what I want. They put too much voltage, so you can cook things. So you'd have to run this through an attenuator. But it's got 200 to 200k on the range, and it does 10, 20 and 40 dB attenuation, but that's way too much for audio circuit. It will cook the output transistor if you don't attenuate it some more. That's those. I don't really use those. I bought them as a pair. The top one here was in working order. The bottom one was what Mark used to call a pile. It's had a bit of a rebuild, a respray, and then both of these are joined together, so they're one unit. So I've basically got a 2-channel audio oscillator, variable controls to both. I don't really need it, but it's there. Yeah, probably ain't worth anything to sell it, so what's the point? Tips for the old soldering iron and the desolder, and paintbrush for dusting stuff, some pots for mixing. There's various chemicals behind the box. There's a parts box there, what I do with that. I chuck bits in it as I'm working on it, and it keeps them safe. This is the original frequency counter that I bought. This is a really good unit, really good. Slightly out on the accuracy, but we can sort that. We can get that sorted. This is the 9903. I've never seen another one since. I've seen 9904s and 9902s, but 9903s seem to not show up. Whether that's Whether it's good or bad, I don't know. It works well. I like it. It's a hefty thing. The whole case is made out of like extruded aluminium. It's a right chunk of a thing. Interesting blue and silver design compared to some of the others. It's a nice little unit. I like that. Keep it around just as a backup. And then we've got this jobby here. This is the Marconi. This is the TF2430, which is an 80 meg frequency counter. Very basic set of controls: megahertz, kilohertz, hertz, on off. It does have, I think this is a 1 meg oscillator in it. So on the back you've got an output. Look at the dust on this thing. An output that reads at 1 megahertz for adjusting it. Again, the Racal-Dana here. Is it the Racal? No, hang on. The Racal's 1 meg. That's a 10. No, I lied. The Marconi is a 10 meg output, and that's a 1. So it's got its own like calibrator inside that you can use for testing other stuff, calibrating stuff. But again, you need to test that it's accurate first before adjusting anything else. This one arrived. I bought it as a backup for the 8903, as I thought it would be quite nice to have another Marconi piece. We'll get on to that in a minute. Didn't work when it arrived. Wasn't overly bothered at the time, so didn't bother with it too much after that. Took it apart not so long back when I was off work with a leg problem. It turned out that the board was dislodged for the up here. This display board is a vertical board, and the horizontal board that it goes into is like an edge connector, and it was a bit wobbly and loose, so we did a bit of tightening work, and that now works. I'm not overly confident in its accuracy. Sometimes it's a bit sketchy. If it wasn't working, I was actually going to use the case for another project, but now that it sort of is working, it does work. It reads, you know, fairly viable numbers. I can't, again, here I am again, I can't bring myself to scrap it for the sake of scrapping it when it's basically a perfectly functioning unit. Maybe I'll chuck it out for sale at some point. Don't really need it with the 2 Racal-Danas and everything else that's knocking around here. So as we move across, I'm trying to keep this. We've got the Hameg. This is an analog oscilloscope, 2 channels, 60 meg. I've had this a little while. It's a very good scope. It's got a component tester on it. Up to, forgive me, I've got a bit of a cold coming on, the coronavirus. There is a knob on here that doesn't work, is it? That one, it just seems to pull out and doesn't really do a lot. But it's a nice scope. I keep it around because it's very useful for visual. I don't necessarily need to be able to read and do the calculations for the numbers, but because it doesn't tell you that, like the digital one, it tells you the voltage, where this you have to kind of work it out for yourself. I'm lazy, I guess. I can't really be bothered to dick around working out a voltage. So we've got this bad boy. I'll keep it around. I got it for a really good price, it seems, because they're actually holding quite a lot more money than I paid for this one. So I'll just keep it around, I think. Might as well use it. Now as we move down, are we going to move down and we'll make a separate segment. Underneath we've got, well, it's a Marconi. There's quite a few people who know what this is, and some others will be sitting there going, oh, what the hell is that? It's got, this is original, it's got its cover. Take its protective cover off. that down there. Inside the protective cover is your compartment. Inside your compartment, undo these two bad boys. This little plate lifts out, and you've got the original Marconi test leads and some additional stuff that's been added over the few years I've owned it. I reckon they're not that worried about that. And then we've got this bad boy. This is a Marconi 2955, the original. It's not the A or the B, and there's some confusion. There's some chat in one of Mark's videos about this, and as you can, I don't know if you can clearly see, I asked the question and said, well, mine only does 30 watts. The A does 75, I think, and there it is, 30 watts max with 3 to 5 watts max on the low power 50 ohm RF input. This is a radio communications test set for work in order, more or less. There's a couple of sketchy bits on this one as well. There's a theme here you're probably picking up on. There it is, it's got all its receiver test there, transmitter test, duplex, tones, bar chart. Oh, let's get out of that one, don't we? There's a scope in there as well. TX, put the scope on. So obviously this is another frequency counter, which is why the Marconi isn't overly important. Problems, not many. It's in really, really good condition. This unit, really good condition. The only thing that doesn't work properly is this variable doodad, which I haven't got anything set on it, so it's the problem with it. Oh, I'm gonna have to go blow my beak in a minute. The problem with that variable one is if you turn it to the right, whatever you're adjusting goes up, and if you turn it to the left, whatever you're adjusting goes up. So there's obviously a problem with the encoder, which stops it from going down and up, which can be a little bit of a pain in the arse. But you've got your buttons, so you can do it manually on the buttons if you want to twiddle it. You can set everything on it. It's a signal generator, audio signal generator, RF signal generator, power meter, frequency counter. It's all the test bench in one box. This is one of my favourite bits of kit. There's a little bit of a story to this. Not sure how interesting it is, but there's a bit of a story. This set is from 1986, I believe. I think that was a model. It's one of the very, very first sets. I think they started producing them in about 84. This was an 86 model. Originally, this belonged to a gentleman who was involved in the original design of this unit. He worked for Marconi in the UK. He was a design engineer. I can't remember which part of this he designed. Was it the... I'd have to look it up, but I think it was part of the RX circuit. He designed the RX circuit for this. Was required by the company back in the day that anything he designed while he was at work had to be then sold to Marconi for £1. So that they did own the right, because the intellectual rights were his. He had to sell those over to Marconi for £1. It's part of his contract, which he obviously did. He was an amateur radio enthusiast, and this was his own personal unit that he bought or acquired, whatever, for his own stuff. It's had a couple of internal modifications done to it, which I assume he did. It all works perfectly. It's ever so slightly out on the calibration. Checked against a frequency counter, it's ever so slightly down, up, whatever it is, and the power meter seems to be a tiny bit off, which sometimes causes it to have an error. So when you do, let's have a look, see if I would do it today. Let's go self-test. It will self-test on an error. There we go. It's going to take a while. So we'll probably just cut back to this when it's done. Where it just passed, there we go, there's the first fail, second fail, third fail. That should be it. And they're all to do with the same circuit. And I tweaked it and then tweaked it back so that I didn't want to fiddle with it too much, take it too far away from it was already set, in case that would make it more inaccurate. But it turns out I should have just knocked it a little bit more. Now it does clear. If I leave this, obviously I've only just switched this on as you saw in the video. I haven't had this on, this has been switched on for less than 10 minutes at this point. Now if I leave that there and come back to it in an hour, there's a chance it will pass. It's quite high but not guaranteed. But what I have found is if I connect a radio up to it, run a transmitter test, just give it a couple of keys on the mic, it will pass straight away. So it's obviously drawing something in there, is heating up, and once it heats up it comes back into spec, so it's slightly off the spec. And it does read slightly low on the frequency, it does read slightly low on the power. Yeah, if I fire a radio into it and just give it a couple of key presses, do the retest, that will pass first time. So it's obviously getting heat into the power meter that's bringing it back into tolerance. So I think what I need to do is just, once I get the time to take the damn thing apart, 'cause it means dragging it out of the bench, take it apart, it's a bit of a faff, there's a lot of shielding inside it. It's a hefty great unit, it weighs quite a bit considering it's supposed to be portable. Yeah, and it was a bit of a task to get it in there with the scope on top. They just fit. It was never designed to take them, and if I had designed it to take them I would have given myself a bit more clearance, but it just is what it is. They got put in there because they were in a different place and I didn't like it. They were getting bashed about. The unit itself's in bloody good condition. It's got all the original parts on it. It's got its original carrying handle which works and acts as a tilt system. It's got its feet, it's got everything. It's a lovely unit. Got it for a reasonably good price. Definitely lower than I've seen them. I bought it from the guy's sister. Once he passed away, she'd had it standing in the corner of a wardrobe for years. Didn't really know what to do with it, and then decided to sell it, and I was lucky enough to be able to buy it. I had the money at the time, so I bought it. I would have preferred a B or an A. I preferred an A, give me that bit of extra power scope. It will handle 100 watts for a short period of time. It's not like it is restricted to 30 watts. 30 watts is its sort of continuous power rating, but I have pumped more than 30 watts into it for a quick, and it does flick over to a 100 watt scale. Now, whether it's been modified to take that I don't know, and I won't push my luck by pumping hundreds of watts into it for a long period of time, because I don't want to break it. It's a lovely old thing. I just kind of, there's something about this old gear that I just really love. Buttons feel, you know, you've got buttons and they actually feel like they do something. You've got, it's solid. There it is, 2955 Marconi test set. Lovely. A little bit noisy. It's got a big arse fan in it. There's a lot going on inside this box. If you ever take one apart, there's a hell of a lot going on inside here. Boards and shielding and RF cables and bloody great tube that can kill you. So I don't like to take it apart very often, but that's long enough waffling on this bit. Let's fan out. Should we have a look at the cables? We'll have a quick look at the cables. These are the originals. There's a crocodile, jobby, and N-type connectors. There's a bunch of adapters for SMA, stuff like that. My oscilloscope leads, various other leads that come in handy. RF probe there. Tosh. Okay, in this video here, we've got down here, we've got sharpening stones, box of assorted screws and doodads, transistors, MOSFETs. There's switches in there, all sorts of different switches. Can't remember what's in that end. What's in that end? That was just odds and sods, light bracket. Somewhere I did actually find, after all that, a genuine volume control switch for that Hameg International Multimode 2. That was the one that was faulty. Just haven't got around to fitting it. I've had it probably 10 years now. It's still in the box. I've kept it in the box because sometimes I put things in drawers like this and then can't remember where the hell they are when I want them, but that's in the multi-mode box and that will stay in there until I get round to it. Yeah, we've got banana connectors, sockets and pin headers and other assorted USB crap there. Again, jack plugs, batteries. I mean, these are out of my boxes of junk. Connectors and wires, JST stuff there, useful for smaller stuff. Box that don't want to shut. Coax and BNC connectors are all in that drawer. Case screws, plastic mounting bolts, various ICs, LM324s, audio amps and shit, loads of that. Snotty nose, really snotty nose. And then this set of boxes here, I've had these donkey's years. Absolutely, when did I get these? Probably the early 90s. I did a thing where, if anyone remembers, just shop JS Tonks, CB repair shop from the 80s. Did a closing down and they were bagging up stuff and just flogging it off. And I bought some, and this is what I've got left really. £5 a bag, which is quite a lot of money back in the day. So I've got various RF cans, brand new, marked up as L19 and 3 and 7 and whatever else. Some more there, look. Different ones at the back there, L9s. Some more that I bought. Nothing in that one. Most of these drawers down here are getting a bit knackered. So, oh, what we've got in here? A couple of old circuit boards. Nothing of any interest. A few odds and sods that I've not identified properly. Some more screws. Empty. Processor out of a laptop. Lovely. No use for that whatsoever. Sort of garbage. Mostly in there. No. So we move on back onto the top. 1,000,001 audio sockets. Yeah. Never used one of them since I've had them. Got them though. Mica and insulators. Now, these are quite useful. Volume controls and squelch pots. Might need one of those. I've got a couple of bent ones on radios up here. Some more from different models. A couple of channel changers there. They're probably like gold dust these days. RF coils. Ferrite rings. See, the ferrite rings, like those yellow and green ones, are off those circuit boards in the bottom drawer. They're quite useful. They're parts that are quite useful for making detectors and stuff, so I've kept them. Most of the other stuff on the boards is useless. Sockets, IC sockets, header pins. That's handy because I've got more header pins in another drawer over there. More pins and jumpers and assorted crap. The little pink box down the side there, pink and black. There's a piece of circuit board. Oh dear me. Piece of circuit board there for projects. Great. That little case that looks like a makeup bag or whatever is an art case. It's got little pots in it. That's now getting filled up with SMD parts, labels, so that I actually know what the hell they are, because eyesight's not that great and I can't see the damn things anymore. That Stanley case is just full of connectors and wires, heat shrink, that kind of stuff. It's just in there, it's easy. I pull that out and I can just get what I want. Service manuals, this little pile of stuff here. Service manuals. There's me Screwdriver Experts Guidebook by Lou Franklin, and underneath it there's Service Technician's Handbook, also by Lou. Some air rifle books, because that's my other interesting hobby. These folder binders. One is the Uniden Export Service Manual. One is the Cybernet Service Manual. And then there are additions in there for specific Uniden models like the Stalkers and whatever, and Cybernet models, multi-mode, jumbo, that kind of thing. The big blue one that says Peugeot Service Department on it used to be my Peugeot stuff from when I worked there back in the day. That one's got the service manual for the 2955 in it, and the operating manual, I think, if I remember right. There's operating manuals for the AVO meters and service manuals for the AVO meters. There's the Hameg service and the Hameg operation manual is in there. All that sort of good stuff. There's a few radio service manuals in there, some from Tonks. I'm not really sure where the Midnight Express has gone. I'm slightly annoyed about that, because there's two really old copies of the Midnight Express, an underground service manual modification guide that used to float around the 80s. They did like one a year, and I've got volume 1 and 2 or 1 and 3, something like that, and you just don't see those anymore. And that's about it, really. We are done. Shop tour over. Obviously it's not really a shop, it's just a space that I work in and snuffle at the phone, really. We'll probably do some more videos of again, I forgot again, this little bad boy. I pulled him out. This is my Multiminor from AVO, in its case, original, bit tatty, yeah, whatever. Open this little bad boy up. This was like an upgrade from the old AVO meter. It's got its original information there, the construction manual with the circuit diagram on the back, lovely. It's got the probes are in this little pouch, the long probes, and then you've got your wires, connectors, and it's basically like a really small version of the AVO 8. This is a Mark 5, I believe, as well. I've got this thing about Mark 5, this it's much more compact. It's got the AVO Multiminor Mark 5 meter in it, and I can't remember how much I gave for this, 20 quid or something. Lovely thing, quite useful. Almost forgot, get the old chemicals there, my own homemade chemical bottles. I think that's about it, really. Nothing much else to report. Happy days. Be good.